James earns millions from internet marketing.
Tim's got millions of questions.
Welcome to Freedom Ocean. Now, jump on in.
James Schramko, welcome back to Freedom Ocean.
It's my absolute pleasure, Timbo.
Isn't it an absolute joy to be back in these waters?
It is. A new setting, a new scene here.
Yeah, well, we're sitting here at the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. You've just checked out of the Hilton, had a
Yep.
lovely time.
It was a great
A
place.
freeing experience. And we've been at the Ed Dale conference, the, what's it called? Going Pro.
Going pro, that's right.
And I've got to say, I'm sort of glad I came. In another sense, I wish I'd stayed at home, because it's just this information. It's just this is like, at what point do you kind of stop and collect your thoughts? However, because we're going to talk about that, talking about what are the right questions to ask in terms of choosing an internet marketing model to get your teeth into. But before we do that, we should welcome our listeners back to the Freedom Ocean. I'm the guy with a million questions. You're the guy with $1 million. And that's the basis of the show, really. As the lovely Holly. Do you know Holly is our voiceover at the start?
Right.
Yeah, she's lovely. And I found Holly on Fiverr.
Okay.
There's a little tip. $5 voiceover. Sounds $1 million, doesn't she?
She certainly does.
Yeah, she's been very helpful. And so that's the premise of the show. So I'm the guy that's got all the questions about internet marketing. And there's lots. And since we launched the show, James, we've gone to number 1 on iTunes.
That's phenomenal. Well, and I guess we should thank the listeners for that.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
And we read every comment.
We do, and they're good. It's nice to get the constructive feedback. It's nice. Yeah, it's good for the ego when they say, we should be charging for this. They say, I like that one.
I like that, and I also like them asking for what they want us to cover, because we're quite dynamic.
Yeah. That said, I've probably got enough questions, I think, for the next decade.
Well, why don't we dive into a couple on the Freedom Ocean today?
Well, listen, before we do that, some of the stuff we've covered in episodes 1 to 4, because sometimes people kind of dip in metaphors galore.
Of course.
But so far we talked about why you walked away from a $300,000 annual salary. We've covered the 10 internet marketing business models, and you shared the one with the most explosive growth. I think it was in episode 3 or 2, which was very interesting. So go back and listen to that if you haven't, listeners. The characteristics of a successful internet marketer, very interesting. See whether you match up to that. What you do differently starting today was another area you covered, and what you'd avoid when starting an internet. What you should avoid when starting an internet marketing business. So there's a fair bit of stuff in there. And in fact, last episode we set our listeners a bit of a challenge, a bit of homework.
I wonder how they went with that.
Clearing the inbox. You love that one.
I love it. I think it's just number 1 in terms of getting set.
I have this fear that things will go missing and people will come knocking on my door saying, why the hell didn't you respond?
I was lucky. I had a manager who was hopeless at making decisions and would never get back to me. And he taught me that sometimes if you ignore something long enough, it just falls away in importance, and only the critical emergency things seem to bob up again.
Right.
So I took that lesson for what it was worth, applied it to my inbox, and I've got to say I've hardly ever had a situation where I've missed something that was critical.
Yeah, okay.
So letting go of that fear is really the first step to freedom.
Yeah, and I've got to say that letting go of fear, one of the big things that came out of, might have been your talk yesterday, was like, think big.
Yeah.
I think fear sometimes stops us from thinking big.
Well, I think it extends back to the old days when there was too much of a penalty for stepping out and for trying something new.
Yeah.
You'd get castigated.
You're talking caveman days?
Yeah, that's right. You'd be outcast and sent off into the wilderness to die.
Chasing mammoths.
You die.
Yeah.
But it's not the case anymore.
Yep.
There's very little downside for trying new stuff.
Yep. But I still think, we talked about whether internet marketing, where it is in its life cycle, and you believe it's really young still. We are of a generation where our parents, they had a job for life. And this lifestyle that freedom that internet marketing potentially offers is very, very it's quite challenging to get your head around, and you do have to make some quite big leaps.
Well, let's have a look at some examples. As a case study, Freedom Ocean. When did that exist?
Well, it's 4 weeks old.
That's right. It's 4 weeks old, but it's now a legitimate published business idea, concept, in action.
Number one on iTunes.
Number one.
I told you that.
I think you mentioned it. With an audience and a community and it'll grow. And that really is just a classic example of having an idea, running it through a few filters or checks and balances, which we might want to talk about at some point, and turning it into something real. And a lot of people come along with an idea. I bet people are interested in the process of how do you go from idea to having an actual online business.
I would love... What do you want to cover that in this episode?
Why don't we?
Make that the heart and soul of this episode, because it's funny you raise that. We do have a listener question from a young bloke who, I won't say what the condition that he suffers, because he may want to go and create this product, but he suffers a particular physical condition, and he wants to create a product around, or an online business around helping other young blokes in their teenage years who also suffer from this condition.
Right.
And he wants to go and create that and make a living from it, because his condition actually does stop him from getting a proper job, getting a proper job, getting a real job.
Well, isn't that interesting?
I've got to stop saying that.
It is, because I have a member of my team suffers polio.
Okay.
And his equipment costs a lot of money, the walking frame stuff, and it's very hard for him to catch public transport. And he really found it hard to get employment anywhere else. And now he works from home. For me, he's part of my team, and this is the first time he's had an employment opportunity where he can make money from his brain, from his ideas and concepts, without even having to leave the house.
Yeah, wow.
And he's in another country.
That's free.
Yeah.
He's completely free. I mean, he's as free as he can be from a business sense, given his condition.
So I guess the suggestion there is that there is opportunity where previously there may not have been. It probably wouldn't have been possible before the internet, unless he was a telephone salesperson or something.
Okay, so the concept of having an idea.
Yep.
What then?
Well, when we look at an idea, first thing is there's a few checks and balances you want to go through to make sure that this idea is going to have commercial potential. So is this person looking to make money from it?
Yep.
Because there's a big difference between setting up a website and building a profitable business. And it's such
What's the difference?
The difference is that one's a website and one's a business. The website is just a marketing.
It's not a business.
It's a marketing channel.
Yep.
And it's like having a billboard. You could get a billboard, you could put an advertisement on it. It doesn't necessarily mean it will make you a profit. So we have research filters. We actually go and check certain things to make sure that there's money there. And there's a few sure signs that you can make money from something. And number one is there already somebody doing it? That's a great check. If someone's already doing it, what can you learn from that?
Well, doing it and or making money from it. So let's assume they're doing it and there's a pay button there, which means they're pursuing something of which they're getting income from. Yeah,
so we like to see someone doing it, and even more exciting is if there's competition. If there's a number of people doing it, and if we were to, one of the simple checks that anyone can do in about a minute is go to Google and type in their idea, see if there are any advertisements running down the right-hand side of the page. Because if there are advertisements, and if they're not just eBay, once you could go along and type dead horses and you'd see an ad, it would say dead horses, ? Check out eBay for best price on dead horses.
They bought every word.
They were bidding on every phrase. So forget the eBay or the big stores. If there's actually sites selling something, that is a great sign. So if you were to go and type plastic surgeon or how to get an accounting diploma or something, you will see advertisements. They are markets where people spend money and there is a consumer and someone's making a profit. If you go to your phrase, if you type it in and there's nothing on that right-hand column, if there's no advertisements, you need to be concerned, because it means the chances of you inventing something are quite slim.
Right.
And the other problem is people might come into it, try and make money, fail, and then they disappear.
I can understand that. Part of me also thinks that, well, someone's got to have a crack first, and what you're saying is there's no such thing anymore as an original idea?
Well, there are less and less.
Yeah.